You are now tuned in to Go Time Dolphins with Charlie Touche and Kadeem Simmons, the Miami Dolphins podcast that's for the fans and by the fans.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's show time. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time.
Welcome back. Welcome all to the Week 4 Miami Dolphins v Tennessee Titans preview. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see I am not with Charlie Touche. I am with 5 Yard Lee. And before we delve into a whole bunch of things first, go and smash that like button. Leave a comment as we are live on the YouTube. If you're watching after, we'll still leave a comment. But yeah, go and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, all the good stuff. And if you're feeling generous, then head over to Patreon/GoTimeDolphins, where you can hopefully become a member. And while you're also there, head on over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, and subscribe if you haven't already to the Dolphin UK podcast. 5 Yard Lee, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. The last time I saw you, you was giving both myself and my wife a heart attack by dropping off a few cans of Coke. Yeah. How have you found being back in the UK?
I miss being in Miami. Quite simply. Yeah. I know there's people. We had some chat in the WhatsApp group the other day. People pointing out fans selling tickets. I'd absolutely be buying a ticket to go Monday night.
Yeah, I saw someone say on social media that everyone can now see why rival fans call Dolphin fans fair weather fans, because when this team are good, or even last season, getting a ticket to a home game would set you back about $400-500. Like even trying to get a ticket to week 1, which you managed to getting the 4 seats next to each other was impossible. So you had to be 2 and 2. People are selling tickets like they are, the brand new PS5 anniversary edition. Like if we wanted to get 4 seats together on Monday, it would be the easiest thing. I'd probably pay about $20 per ticket. So yeah, just because the team loses 2 games back to back and the starting quarterback is injured, fans want to sell their ticket and leave games early. And listen, I'm not going to tell anyone how to fan, but it's not what I would do. And having a conversation with you, I know you wouldn't do it either. So yeah, before we even talk about, I guess, week 4, what did you make of the week 3 performance? Because obviously I saw you week 1, saw you week 2. Week 3, obviously not so good. But what did you make of the manner of the defeat and the stuff that's come out after?
I mean, it's a bit of a shambles. But that being said, I mean, you had a chance there late in the game, down 2 scores. Darren Smythe catches the ball in the end zone. All of a sudden, it's a 1-score game late in the game, regardless of how bad the performance was up to that point. It just shows you still had a chance if you could have just strung 5, 6, 7 plays together. But you couldn't. I mean, I'm not picking on Darren Smythe. That would have been an incredible catch had he made it. It was a good throw, gave him a chance, wasn't able to bring it in. But, not putting points on the board there, was a bad look all round. But at that point, you've got the backups back up in on the road in Seattle. Is there a much worse place to put a backup quarterback in and then put his backup in? I think it just all contributed to, what was a bad performance. There's no getting away from it. It was bad. It needs to be better. But if there's anything to help you get right, it's playing a home game against a winless team.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that in terms of playing on the road in Seattle, because I was listening to the Fins Tailgate podcast. Shout out to the Fins Tailgate, color commentary, El Capitan, all those guys have a great show. Go and follow them. They were talking about Seattle is one of the hardest stadiums to go and play in. I kind of feel like people kind of forget that, and they were saying that Tua might have struggled in that environment because once that crowd gets behind the team, it's very difficult. And I remember chatting to Parlay J. That's the name over here, by the way. We now call him Parlay J. And we're kind of saying how this Seattle team generates pressure. That defensive front seven is really good at getting near the quarterback. And I think I said in our UK group as well, I was like, because I think it was the Seahawks like led the league or like top three for pressure, and it was like, oh, could have played the Dolphins. Like, no, the Seahawks are a good team. They're 3-0 for a reason, and people have them going far in the playoffs. Like, yes, we didn't do ourselves any justice in that defeat, but we lost to a good team. And if there's any positives to take, again, Buffalo was a bad evening. Buffalo have won 11 of the last 12 games against Miami. It's a difficult game. Seattle are a good team, so you said it. Week 4, you're playing a winless Tennessee team, a quarterback who his last victory in the NFL was was that game against Miami, which I think for many probably not the start of the downfall of what the Dolphins are now, but there's definitely an element of what we lost. Connor Williams that game.
Tyreek got hurt. Did Tyreek hurt in that game? Was he hurt the game before and played hurt? I can't remember now.
He came out in like the first quarter, hurt, and then came back in the fourth, and that's when like the team rallied and got the and then yeah. But I know for some people that was like not so much the last good performance, but after that, like even though we went and beat the Cowboys, the Dolphins just basically haven't played well since that game. And now there's no Tua. Looks like Armstead's out with concussion. Kendall Fuller's out with concussion. Or this team is banged up already, and it's only week 4. We don't know who the starting quarterback is. What do you make of everyone who is angry with coach for not naming a starting quarterback? Do you see it as him not knowing, or him on a Tuesday and Wednesday not telling the opposition who to plan for?
I mean, I don't think it. I mean, to play devil's advocate a little bit, if I was an angry fan about the fact that he hasn't mentioned it, I would say, what benefit are you giving the other team? There's not that much tape on either of those guys. It's not like you've got, and there's not much tape of them in general, but there's also very little tape of them playing in this offense with this team. There's a quarter and a bit in Seattle, less than a quarter of footage, and Tyler Huntley's not played at all. So I don't know what competitive advantage you'd be giving up. I would also say if you're angry that he's not named a starting quarterback, you might be more angry if he does name one. If it's not the one you want, because it seems to be very much that the fans have decided who they want. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Just there seems to be, most people seem to be in favour of Tyler Huntley playing rather than Tim Boyle. So I don't know. So you might not get the answer you want. So wanting him to name one doesn't mean he's necessarily going to name the guy you want.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Cat for Life. He says, "Gentlemen, we got a win on Monday, bros." So welcome, Cap. Thanks for the comments. And shout out to Manolo Rivera. He says, "Hello, gents," and then adds, "Not you, Cap." So gotta love a bit of that. But yeah, listen. Maybe it's because I've worked in media for so long. And when coach didn't name a starter, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's fine, because if you, and again, listen, some teams like the Panthers was like, yeah, Andy Dalton's going to be the starter in week 4, but I kind of think everyone kind of knew that. The Dolphins kind of have a bit of a dilemma, because you mentioned and rightfully said that whether the starter is Tim Boyle, whether it's Tyler Huntley, there's very limited, if any, tape on either of those guys in Miami. There's tape of Tim Boyle in in East Rutherford, there is tape of Tyler Huntley with the Ravens, a bit with the Browns and stuff like that. But you are going to get game after game, down after down, snap after snap of either of those guys in Miami. There's definitely I think, yeah, like you said, if Coach came out and said I'm starting Tim Boyle, people would be furious. If Coach said he's starting Tyler Huntley, people would be over the moon. Tyreek Hill may have given it away in in an interview by his locker where he said he's been catching passes from Tim Boyle, but he also said he'd be catching passes from Jalen Waddle, and they're basically trying to find anyone who can, basically throw the ball and give them a chance to win. So, and it also might be a case of, and I think you might have mentioned this before, for people who wanted Tyler Huntley to play against Seattle, again, you're going into a stadium, into a team which play really well at home once that crowd gets behind them, I should say. I think it's very unrealistic and, if anything, quite stupid to expect Tyler Huntley, who doesn't know the playbook, to come in and basically try and call plays in that stadium within days of joining the team. I just didn't think that was possible. Or am I incorrect?
No, I think what's likely to happen though, if you had gone that route, is you find him coming away from trying to make plays with his arm and reverting back to being able to trying to make plays with his legs. And that's absolutely fine. It's part of his game. It's part of his game that is different than anybody else on the roster. But it also means for the same people who are concerned about the O-line play, they're not going to be able to get in front and protect him. They're not going to be able to help him much. If he's moving around, they can barely protect someone who's standing in the same spot at times. So, if you're not happy with O-line play, don't necessarily expect someone running around is going to necessarily make the jump you think it is. Like, we've seen the ups and downs of having someone do that in different offenses across the NFL. The one thing I would say probably gave me some cause for optimism is Coach mentioning having some of the RG3 stuff still in the playbook, because that matches up to his kind of play far better than asking him to do what Tua does. And we know, and I think this is the other thing, is I think there was a serious case of it last week where almost maybe having the extra days between the Thursday night game against the Bills allowed us to kind of raise our expectations and talk ourselves into that we weren't making a massive step off from Tua to anybody else. I don't think it's as simple as, hey, Tyler Huntley might play better than Skylar Thompson. Absolutely, he might. Does that mean he's going to be anywhere close to what we expect from our starting quarterback? Not necessarily. So we really need to kind of just give any of the guys a chance and then judge them based on the actual performance rather than just being, hey, the backup must be better than the guy who's currently playing on the field. Because it's not always the case. It's not always the case elsewhere. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But we're not going to know that until, like you say, we see a quarter, a half, 3 quarters, and then full game. Do you know what I mean? We're going to see that kind of progression. But for all of them, it's going to have to be procedurally, it needs to be better. They need to be just being able to do the basics right, getting lined up, less penalties, all of that stuff. That's, Jay was screaming at me the other day, it's a discipline thing. It absolutely is a discipline thing. And that's going to go a long way to helping them get to where they want to be. But also doing it at home, I think, is going to be a massive help.
Yeah. Cap says bring out the old effort playbook, and there's definitely a case to be made this week. Let's just keep it really simple. That doesn't mean less motions. All of a sudden, people hate motions now. It's like everyone does motions, every team. Like, it's people have been doing motions for years. Like, just stop.
You definitely need to find a way to get the ball in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill's hands more. They just were not involved enough the other day. Like, if you're going to go down with the ball getting in their hands somehow. Yeah. Run more end arounds. Do whatever it takes. Like, Tyreek Hill was voted the number 1 player by the players in the NFL. That's because he is a scary dude to go against. And I thought even when things were starting to dissolve a little bit the other day in Seattle, there wasn't enough conscious effort to just do something with him. You know, we saw it a couple of weeks ago. We saw him actually return a punt. Like it seemed like an ideal game to try and get Tyreek to return a punt to just get something. I know he had the one drop ball and things were going badly, but say I wouldn't mind a jet sweep and end around something, just something to try and get him into the game, because I think it changes the doesn't mean you're going to win, just changes the mood of the entire team, the entire kind of flow of the game.
Yeah, Manolo says, I hate to be feeling this way, but it has been 25 years of the same. Pardon if I don't positively contribute. And listen, no, listen, this is, even if it's a negative comment, it's still a positive contribution. Because it's a contribution. No one's going to sit here and say that, you can't contribute. He adds, the franchise is mismanaged from the top, all else is half measures. And before I kind of get to a different point, I do disagree that the franchise is mismanaged from the top, because if this franchise was mismanaged, we'd be feeling like Cleveland Browns fans, where it's just like, you spent all this money on a quarterback and you now need to for all the talk of the Dolphins need to blow up and start again, the Browns need to blow up and start all over again, because you do not have a franchise quarterback at all. This franchise has built a team which has given fans hope, and hope of reaching a Super Bowl and winning the division. And because it hasn't come true, I feel like fans are saying that's mismanagement, but it's like, no, because it's like there's 32 teams in this league, only one wins the Super Bowl. 31 other teams fell. Getting to the Super Bowl is an achievement, but it's not the achievement. And I think that, if you don't win the Super Bowl, your season is a failure and you are trying to win it. So I don't know. That's just my belief. What do you think?
I think we're only going to be able to judge it retrospectively at the end of the season, because if Tua comes back, you make the wild card, all of a sudden everything's different. Do you know what I mean? Like, the reason that we're disappointed as a fan base right now, the reason that we are down, is because we know this team is good and should be winning. Now, that kind of suggests that they're not badly built. Do you know what I mean? So I get it from both. I can see certainly both sides of the argument, and absolutely, like, it's tough to feel confident right now. The Jets are winning games. The Bills, came into the season kind of, no one knew what they were going to be. They seem to be better than they were before. It's a scary place to be in. And even, the Patriots have won games already this season. People before the season were talking about them as being one of the worst teams in football. It's a scary place to be right now. But so I think we're going to need some hindsight with this. And there's a lot to play out. That's only week 4.
Yeah. Cap also says, if we do another rebuild, it will be 5 rebuilds in 25 years. I don't think the fan base deserves this, man. And I think, again, the wider fan base, I agree, doesn't deserve that. But like I said at the top of this show, again, just my opinion, feel free to 100% disagree. Because, we had this conversation, we, myself, Lee, and others in a WhatsApp group. If you go to a game and your team starts losing and you leave, to me, you can deserve the bad times, because, again, just the way I am a fan, I support my team or any team through thick and thin, and I stay to the end, because me personally, I watch a game hoping that my team wins, but I don't expect my team to win, because that's sport. If I want my team to win every single game, I'll pick up my PlayStation pad, play Madden, and set on the easiest setting and win. That's not how life works. Manolo says, understand, and I'm not one to yuck someone else's yum. That's from another comment. He then says, I was kind of skeptical 5 years ago when I got on the internet, but I've met a lot of cool Dolphin fans, and those people do not deserve the product that we're seeing right now on the field. It is not right. He says, we apologize from the United States. You guys deserve better, bro. And then Manolo says, I've been there before. The fundamentals aren't there. The HC has shown he can't adjust. The GM has hired the wrong HC twice, and last at the fans' concern over the biggest weakness, the O-line. Anything you want to say to in those comments, Lee, before we move on to something else?
No, I think it's fair. I don't think coach has got a lot to prove. I'm a huge fan of coaches, but there's some things that he's done right now that simply aren't good enough, and that he has to learn from. And I think there is a case of sometimes trying to be too clever,
Agreed.
but that's part of the learning. This is not it's not a fun place for anyone to be. But yeah, it needs to improve. But the first chance they're going to have to improve this is Monday night.
Agreed.
I mentioned to someone the other day, and I'd be interested to know what other people's thoughts are on this. Like, Dolphins have struggled the last couple of years to perform in prime time, right? That's because they're playing good teams and because they perform badly. Who's the last coach who had them performing consistently well in prime time? Because we've played teams that we should beat and teams that we should win. Teams that we beat and teams that we, should probably lose against. But they seem to all go badly. And the
Like the
games that we
Titans.
should win, exactly. But there's also been games that we should have won a couple of years ago. We beat the Jags, I think, on a Thursday night. Like, that was a game that was closer than it should have been. We went to Pittsburgh on the famous Brian Flores play that, right? But that game was out of control with the Dolphins scoring points to start that game. That spiraled out of control. Tua came in and beat the Ravens on a Thursday night, but that game was heading the wrong way before he came in. There was an Xavier Howard fumble return for a touchdown, I think, and then Tua came in and and got the team moving a bit. But it's also been a long time since, regardless of how they play on a Sunday, that when they get in prime time, it's just not looked good. And I have absolutely no answer as to why that might be. I'm just interested to know if anyone else has any theories, because it's kind of been a consistent theme, and it's not always that the team isn't good enough because they get blown out in those situations, and that's weird to me.
Yeah, I think, and again, Manolo says sorry for being a wet blanket. Don't ever apologize. If these are your feelings, and I'm glad you're able to express them over here via the comment section.
This is Dolphins therapy. It's okay.
100%. There was another thing he said. When he spoke about the GM has hired the wrong HG twice. And what I find really interesting about that is because over the last few weeks, especially as his Vikings defense plays the way it does, there are so many people on social media saying the Dolphins got it wrong in firing Brian Flores and that he's proven them wrong. And I find it interesting that you believe that they've hired the wrong head coach twice, because the one interesting thing is that I feel like the majority of Dolphin fans are split between liking Brian Flores and liking Mike McDaniel, and you're seeing them go back and forth at the moment. And I find that quite interesting. But yeah, the one thing I did want to say about Tyreek Hill potentially giving the game plan away, and you spoke about seeing a lot of end arounds and keeping it simple. Do you think we see a flea flicker or a trick play where ball snapped, end around to Jalen Waddle? So Jalen Waddle, run from the right hash to the left hash. Tyreek Hill at the same time as is running the post route, and you see Jalen Waddle try and throw the ball downfield to Tyreek Hill.
I absolutely believe there will be something in the playbook for it that they will be practicing to run. I think there was the other day, but they completely botched it because they couldn't block anyone up front, and it got blown up before Skyler could even turn around and let the ball go. I can't remember the exact play. I just remember seeing it, and everything looked kind of off. I mean, it's easy to say that about the entire first half, but
Yeah,
they looked like they were trying to run something very different at the time.
yeah. I think again, when you're struggling to move the ball, again, a wide receiver throwing or anyone doing anything to get that spark and to get going might be the way forward. Was you gonna say something?
No, I was going to say, just as kind of equally, had the Dolphins been able to finish off that drive after the Darren Smythe non-catch, they still had a couple of chances. I think they still had a chance to punch it in, didn't they? Wasn't that on third down? I might be wrong
so.
about that. But do you know what I mean? That also felt like the end of the game.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. So I guess as I bring up a few comments over here on YouTube, like I said earlier, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We are about 80 followers away from 3,000, and the road to 1 million views is well underway. Lee, what are or I guess what are one of your keys to victory against the Titans on Monday night?
Um, without knowing who's playing quarterback, I think, to be honest, just keeping things simple, just fundamentals. I think the defense is doing a good enough job right now. I know they're a little bit up and down, but like new system, new players, like I think it's coming together. I thought the defense actually played pretty well the other day. I know um, it never looks good when a wide receiver goes streaking into the end zone on his own, but like it's one play. Like I think it's coming together. So I think there's a few ups and a few downs, but I think the defense can keep you in games. The offense just don't need to shoot themselves in the foot. Do you know what I mean? We just need to play fundamentally sound football. There was enough drives to put that moved the ball the other day to put points on the board. Again, that's why it feels so bad. There was opportunity to put points on the board. You had the interception that set you up deep. The run game at times looked like it had enough there, but you kind of got away from it, probably based on the scoreboard. But to be honest, when you were down 17 early in the game, I think historically coaches do this thing where they kind of think, oh, I've got to get away from the run game. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter how you get points on the board. Like death by 1,000 cuts if necessary. Like just get there. But I think they kind of like almost it was that drive that kind of broke the camel's back, wasn't it? So I think this week just keep it going. Don't put yourself in a hole in every drive.
Yeah, I think it might have been Chris Kaufman. It probably was Chris Kaufman. Had a really interesting thread basically saying for everyone who believes the Dolphins veered away from the run game against the Seahawks, kind of have a look at the situations in which the Dolphins found themselves in, aka actually on first down they were quite balanced in terms of calling runs and passes. What ended up happening was the Dolphins were down 14 points, constantly giving up penalties. So they were like starting 1st and 15 or 1st and 20, or get a positive play on first and then second. So basically, it got to a point where you're down 14 points for the majority of the game. You're starting behind the chains 24/7. Running the game basically becomes unattainable. And what made it worse was that you weren't getting yards and passing. As long as the Dolphins, like you said, play sound fundamental football, and if they can get ahead, even if it's get ahead 7 points heading into second quarter, start running the ball. Because I was saying to Charlie and to others as well, this Titans team have shown in the first 3 weeks they're going to give you the ball. They're going to mess up and give you the ball. If you can take advantage of that, even if it's coming away with 3, you might be a situation where you get 2 turnovers, only get 6 points off those turnovers. But all of a sudden, you're up 6-0 or 9-0, and then before you know it, you can kind of like dictate the pace of the game. So
It's a bit like that Jets game that Skylar won last year. Like just keep putting points on the board. Like that has to be better than turning it over on 4th down, punting the ball away. But I did think it was an interesting situation there. On what was it, the first drive of the game, where coach tried to kick a long field goal. That you have to believe he's fighting every fiber of his being not to go for it. But judging by the way that the defense played, the majority of the game, he'd probably been better off punting it. But if Tua was in the game, they would be going for it on 4th down at that part of the field.
I feel like coach is in his own head because again, you're in a situation where in previous weeks he's gone for it on fourth down and it hasn't worked. And the other team has scored. Someone's like, just take the free or punt it. So okay, he goes for the three misses. Well, why didn't you go for it? And it's like, dude, at this point I can't win with you guys. Like, what do you want me to do? And again, it's hindsight. Everything is amazing with hindsight.
I hope it's not the case, but I did actually mention this to you the other day. Like in one of the pressers last week, one of the beat writers are basically insinuated that anyone could run the offense, and coach quite clearly was not impressed with the insinuation that anyone could do it. But I hope he wasn't baited into running a slightly more complicated offense, almost to say, okay, well, if anyone can run it, well, let's see what happens. Because, I mean, that would be terrible coaching. But, I think people expected things to look simpler than they did. I'd also, sorry, this is like a serious autopsy into the game, isn't it? But how easy do you think the ball? A lot of Skylar Thompson's ball fakes looked weird, right? They just looked off. Now, we've seen Skylar play before. We've seen him play in the preseason. Like, is this just a case of everything's designed for a left-handed quarterback reading things left to right as opposed to reading things right to left? Like, is it just that the progressions are hard for a right hand? Am I simplifying it too much? I mean, again, I have none of these answers. It looked weird. It looked like Skylar was doing things that we've seen him do, yet somehow now he didn't seem to be able to do them.
Yeah, I think again, it's people will say I'm giving him excuses, blah blah. I challenge any quarterback with less than 10 starts, no matter how many seasons they've been in the NFL. Go into Seattle and try and win a game. It's difficult. Yes, he 100% could have played the game better. I'm in no way trying to say he had a good game. Not at all. All I'm saying is that this is a Madden, and realistically, again, it's in the history of the NFL, how many seventh round quarterbacks have come out and made a genuine a career as an NFL starter? Not many. And just because Brock Purdy done it a few years ago, that's the outlier to the rule. Essentially, what I'm saying is Skylar Thompson against Seattle, and at the moment looks like a seventh round developmental quarterback who probably was never really going to pan out, but because of the Dolphins situation at quarterback, he probably played more than they expected him to. But we have this conversation all the time. No one drafts backup quarterbacks to start. That is an absolute myth, which fans keep on telling themselves. You take a quarterback in the seventh round because they're really cheap, they can hold a clipboard, and maybe for the end of the game to see it out, or for one game a season, they have to play. That is it.
If you had a good backup quarterback, you'd be trying to trade him for something better, probably an O lineman. Do you know what I mean? It's because you'd be saying, I don't need that talent sitting on the bench.
Yeah. So Manolo says historically yes, but you have Purdy draft off Skylar. But again, that's the point I'm making. And we had Lee, me and you had this conversation. The 49ers didn't draft Brock, or we feel the 49ers didn't draft Brock Purdy to start because they had Trey Lance and they also brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. Like maybe not at the same time, but like they had so many quarterbacks before they was like, actually, we kind of need to stick with Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy has done a great job leading this team to the Super Bowl. That is absolutely amazing. Well done. It's the same.
The only reason we can praise Brock Purdy for getting there is because the 49ers failed to get two quarterbacks beforehand, including giving us a bunch of picks to get Trey Lance. Like, that's the guy they wanted. They were wrong. They were just like flat out wrong. Then they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo and paid him big money. They got that wrong too. Do you know what I mean? Basically, if you take enough stabs at it, hopefully you'll get one right. And that's what basically every NFL team is doing. So it's not intentional. How did Dolphins fans feel the day Brock Purdy went in against us? probably like we were going to win the game, right?
100. It's like, hey, you're putting the 7th-round quarterback against us. Have fun with that. And Manolo said the H team made adjustments for Purdy. He didn't. He just runs the system better than everyone else. Because again, where's Trey Lance right now? Trey Lance isn't an answer to anything. Purdy, the 49ers didn't make adjustments for Purdy. Purdy just is able to run their system. Same way Mike McDaniel is trying to do the same with Skylar Thompson. He's not making adjustments for Skylar Thompson. You either know the system or you don't. And if you don't know it, you're going to get what you saw against Seattle, and then off you go. So yeah, listen, it's the same way teams for the last 25 to 30 years have been trying, more like 25 or 20, have been trying to find quarterbacks in the 6th round because it worked once with Tom Brady. Realistically, teams do what normally the teams do what the Panthers do, give up a bunch of 1st-round picks to try and get someone, the top of the 1st round, as opposed to going, I'm actually going to sit back and draft a guy in the 7th round to be my franchise quarterback. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, most teams can't get one quarterback right, let alone get two. It doesn't really happen. Like, it's too many 1st-round picks are busts. Do you know what I mean? That's not because it's an easy thing to do, let alone to then try and do it with guys that played small schools and get drafted late.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah.
Manolo also says Kadeem Skyler's been here for 3 years, shouldn't be surprised. Listen, it's at this point nothing surprises me no more. Like, I would not be surprised if, and again, the interesting thing will be if Tyler Huntley starts and Tyler Huntley wins and the Dolphins are 2-2, everyone will be like, Tyler Huntley, he's the one, as opposed to going, yeah, the Dolphins with a backup quarterback beat an 0-3 team. Great. Like, that's what we kind of, and even to the point, the Dolphins still have enough talent to win this game. It should be a case of, regardless of who's at quarterback, the Dolphins, if this Dolphins team has any aspirations of winning the AFC East or reaching the Super Bowl, they should have enough to beat the Titans on prime time. But like you said, about 10, 20 minutes ago, this isn't a Mike McDaniel issue. This isn't a Chris Greer situation. The Dolphins, for how long, have been awful in prime time, and they need to sort it out. And if there's one really ironic positive you might see from the Tua injury, people might stop putting the Dolphins on prime time because they lose games and someone gets injured. And if that means you give us more 1 p.m. Sunday games, I will take it and I will be there.
It's also kind of funny, isn't it, that it was only we're week 3, week 4 now. 5, 6 weeks ago, we were watching Skylar Thompson outplay Mike White in the preseason, going, well, that's good because we're saving money at the backup quarterback position. That bit us in the arse pretty quick.
Yeah. Even to the point where I'm seeing Dolphin fans say, hey, go and get Zach Wilson. No, was that? Yeah.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. I've seen it.
And it's just like, before we get into bonus time, JML said the life of a fan, didn't miss a single game in a 1-15 season, but it was traumatic. That's the kind of fan I was like. With you. 100. I wasn't a fan then, but if the Dolphins don't win another game this year, I'll watch every single game. I will record every single podcast. And if anything, it might be easier to get tickets next year. We could all sit together. I'm just saying. Manolo Rivera says, related to Lee's point, some franchises can't draft a quarterback. Chicago shouldn't be allowed to draft a quarterback for 10 years.
Absolutely.
There. And then Tim Cavo says, and welcome, Tim. Yes, we do have the talent, but not being brought into the game. I expected more screens or end around tap to Hill or Waddle just to get them the ball. And we might see that on Monday. Not to disagree with you, but the only thing I will say is I'm sure teams expect that as well. And they'll just start playing underneath. And can the Dolphins then, take advantage of that? Tim, I will answer the question you just put in the comments in bonus time. Lee, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, just goes to show, doesn't it, the difference between Tua and everybody else. And I'm a huge Tua fan, but everyone knows it's coming when Tua's playing. Difference is he can still do it.
It is crazy. I have a book here of Miami Dolphins trivia. got it for Christmas. It's been on my desk every single day. I'm going to ask a question.
Oh, no.
I'm going to ask it on this side of bonus time. I am going to get the answer at the end of the show. And if you know the answers, then chuck it in the comments. So let's have a look. This is really bad. Look, this should be a fairly. There's 2 questions here. I'm going to go for question 17. The question is, who was the last coach to lead the Dolphins to the playoffs? Was it A, Adam Gase, B, Tony As I'm reading this was written before the last year. Yeah. Okay, do you know what? I'll ask a different question. Who was the last team Miami beat in the playoffs? Was it A, the Baltimore Ravens, B, the Seattle Seahawks, C, the Indianapolis Colts, or D, Buffalo Bills? Again, who was the last team Miami beat in the playoffs? A, the Ravens, B, the Seahawks, C, the Colts, or D, the Bills? Put your answers in the comments. Lee, I will get your answer on the other side of bonus time. I'm not Charlie. And again, because there's no Charlie, we will do a very, very short no huddle after bonus time. I forgot to do it this time, bonus time, but blah, blah, blah. So make sure you stick around after the outro. Stick around for bonus time, and we shall see you in a sec. Peace.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's show time. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time.
So, yeah, the first question I asked last coach to lead the Dolphins to the playoffs, I was reading that, I was like, well, technically it's Mike McDaniel because the current coach, and so the options would have been A, Adam Gase, B, Tony Soprano, Sparano, sorry, C, Dave Onset, or D, Don Shula. What would you have said, Lee?
I would have said Sparano.
You think Sparano was the last coach to lead the Dolphins to the playoffs?
Yeah. Could be wrong.
So Manolo Ribeiro says Gase, and yeah, the answer is Gase. Yeah. Tannehill goes down against the Cardinals. Yeah. As I was reading, I was like,
against the Steelers.
Yeah, the British born Jay Ajayi. Can you go 200 yards again? No, he can't. No, he cannot. And the other question I asked, the last team Miami beat in the playoffs: A, Ravens, B, Seahawks, C, Colts, D, Bills. Know what the answer is?
The Indianapolis Colts.
Manolo Rivera says Colts. He was there. Tim Caro says, yeah, I know this one and it's crazy. JML says the Ravens. Tim says they aren't in the AFC anymore. So I'm assuming Tim is thinking it's the Seahawks. This book, the answer is the Colts. It says the Colts is the last team the Dolphins beat in the playoffs. Yeah. But we had this conversation where like the Dolphins and the Seahawks did meet in the playoffs and the Dolphins won. But yeah, this book says, and yeah, the Colts were the last team the Dolphins beat in the playoff. Manolo, you were right, as were you, Lee. Let me quickly get or try and find an up-to-date injury report. Who do you think the best person on social media would have that? I was thinking Travis, maybe.
Yeah, Travis.
Travis today. Look at that, an hour ago. So I won't do the no huddle music. But I will say that for the Dolphins, Teron Armstead, Kendall Fuller, and David Long did not participate on Friday. Storm Duck, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Syrian Neal, Skylar Thompson, and Malik Washington were limited. Alec Ingold and Jalen Phillips were full participants. For the Titans, Simmons did not participate. Jalen Duncan and Amani Hooker were limited. DeAndre Hopkins and Adarius Sneed were full. And Chidobe Awuzie has been moved to IR. So that is your injury report. And again, with no Charlie, I'm not going to try and attempt to do fantasy. That is not for me. What I can try and do is get Charlie to send me or record a video of what he thinks you should do for fantasy and put that on our YouTube channel. So look out for that. And there will be easy money bet of the week over on Patreon if you're an MVP. So that will be there probably tomorrow, as I don't have that information just yet. Lee, so that really weird. Apologies. First question: what's your score prediction for Monday night?
I think it's still close. Just think at the moment the Titans might be bad, but we still got to get our stuff together. And as much as I'd love for it to be a big win, I mean, I'm always going to predict a win because I'm always hoping for a win. So, say 2017.
Interesting. I was thinking more like 2013 or maybe 2014 to the Dolphins. I can see defense scoring a touchdown. I can see Achan running in a touchdown. Again, it's really weird. Me and Charlie had this massive back and forth about how the defense are playing. He was saying it hasn't been good. They gave up 17 points in the first quarter. I was like, yeah. And then after that, they like played lights out and basically said to the offense, "Hey, score one touchdown and we're back in this game. You have one job. Score one touchdown, and you never know what can happen." Didn't happen, but I can't see this defense shutting them out. I think they will score at least one touchdown, probably in the first quarter. But the one thing Anthony Weaver and the defense has done is in the second half really keyed into what the other team are doing and basically stopped them. So my prediction is a 2013 or 2014 victory. And I guess the final one from me, before we head into extra points over on Patreon. Do you think coach gives up play calling?
No.
Yeah.
I think it's, for all the people who don't like Jerry Jones as a general manager, I think it's very difficult once you're put in that position of power to give it up. Would you give it up if it was you? It'd be difficult to say, hey, I'm the right guy to be the head coach, but I've decided I'm the wrong guy to call plays. I'm not saying he doesn't do it. I just think it's unlikely because then he would have to fully believe someone else is going to do a better job at that than him. And I think that kind of undermines a bunch of stuff you're trying to instill as a head coach. I think if you're going to be the sort of head coach that doesn't call plays, you're that guy from the beginning.
Yeah. Tim Cameron has some fantasy tips. Says bench all Dolphin players other than maybe Achan. Probably, I would agree with that. JML says the last time I saw us play the Colts live was when they were still in the AFC East. Marino and the Dolphins beat the Colts and Peyton Manning in '99. Great game. Tim Caro says, I think our D needs to score to get to 20, and that probably will be the case. And JML says never. And I agree. I think if the call comes from above, if like Chris Greer or whoever says, hey, Mike, you need to stop calling plays, I think that's the beginning of the end for Mike McDaniel. I feel like once Mike McCarthy stopped calling plays in Dallas, I think gave it to whoever it was, you knew that was the end. Like it's just like this isn't it anymore. I think coach might allow more input and say, hey, do you know what? Actually, I'm in my head a bit too much. What do you guys think we should do here? But again, it's what you probably know this better than me. There's a game, it might be in Tua's first season, where him and coach are on the sideline going, "What do you think we should call here?" And to like a touchdown, and they literally call a touchdown play, and it's just like, "Yep, there you go." And it's so easy to say the Dolphins haven't played well in the last, maybe 4 or 5 games, and give up the play calling. Before that, when we were like this time last year, we've just come, week 4. So we just come off the Dolphins Broncos game where we just put up 70. No one is calling for coach to give up plays. No one whatsoever. And it's so funny. A year later, everyone's like, he needs to go. He's the worst. It's just like, it really is a what have you done for me lately league.
Oh yeah, I mean, I literally got on the TV in the background. The Bengals playing the Commanders, and so there's a lot of teams out there now that have got problems, that they have got bad records and they don't look good. And the difference is a lot of those have their starting quarterback. Do you know what I mean? Like, we might not have looked pretty in week 1, but we got a win. Like, pretty sure Bengals fans would love a win right now.
Yeah.
There's a few teams out there that I think are probably nervous and maybe in a worse position than we are.
Last thing before we head into extra point, because I've seen this a lot on social media as well regarding week 1. Oh, but if it wasn't for the defense, we would be 0-3. It's like, so what? The defense done its job. The defense got a turnover, and the Dolphins won a game. It's like, I don't like this narrative that if it wasn't for the defense, no, like it's because of the defense, and it's a team game. Like, because the defense got that turnover, and because special teams got that field goal, the Dolphins won the game. Stop making it seem like we are literally 2 separate teams. We are one team, 3 different units. So, yeah, and definitely agree with this, Tim. It's only some situations, the 3rd, 4th, and short, then the end zone fades, that makes some say should give up play calls. And yeah, but again, we've seen it in week 1 when we went for it on 3rd and 1 twice with fullback dives, and we got it. Everyone was like, "Yay, coach, you're finally doing it!" And then week 2, when he tried, it doesn't work. Coach, what are you doing? It's never going to work. So again, coach can't win. But final one from JMR. If we fix our ability to convert 3rd and 4th and short, we're going to be ready to get through tough games. I agree. And yeah, Casey are 1 play in each game from being 0-3, but they didn't go the other way, and they are 3-0. Every team can be similar. Guys, we could be here all day. Instead, we are going to head over to Patreon for extra point. So if you are subscribed to Patreon, head on over there. I'll be honest, it probably won't go up until Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon. So if you haven't got a Patreon membership, but you want one, I think prices start at like $3. Again, difficult times for everyone. I'm not going to say, give us your money, but if you are feeling generous, we would greatly appreciate it. So if I don't see you over on Patreon, we shall see you for the Titans review next week. Peace.